Okay. So, Jill, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and accepting to do the interview. I really appreciate that. Um, so if you maybe want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your blog just to get us started.
Sure. And I'm so excited that I saw your note looking for guests because I, as of a year ago, I had never done a podcast and I was terrified. And now I just do them all the time. Uh, so, yeah, I'm Jyl Barlow. I live in Virginia in the United States. I blog about, it's sort of just like ramblings about what's going on in my life. I would say the focus a lot right now is about family and relationships. I tend to take a more humorous approach to my blog, although lately I think it's been too serious. I'm trying to I'm trying to move a little bit more into writing about travel as my kids all have graduated or will in a few weeks. So it's fun. I love writing a blog. I don't know if anybody reads it. I'm sure they do. I never remember to look at the stats.
I think it's actually more fun, like to just blog without caring too much about the
Yeah.
stats. Like,
Yeah.
just do it from your heart, it sounds like what you're doing.
Yes.
So do
Yeah.
you want to tell us about what inspired you to start blogging and why you chose to start blogging?
Sure. So it started 15 years ago, probably when blogs were first a thing. And I wrote for about 5 years. It was just so random. And then it was so random that I like accidentally took 5 years off. When I moved to Virginia and I became a part of a blended family, I'm a stepmother. I needed a place to put all these like confusing feelings and frustrations that I was having. And, my therapist at the time was like, why don't you start journaling? And I just couldn't stop there. I was like, not only will I journal, I'll publish what I'm writing. So that's kind of how I got my blog running again was, I committed that I was going to regularly post kind of my life as a stepmom, and it's just been going strong ever since.
That's really great. Yeah. I think blogging and writing in general is like such great therapy. Like it's just wonderful. Yeah. Um, so when did you first know that you wanted to write? Like, have you always loved writing or,
I really have always loved writing. The first time I remember thinking, "Oh, I could be good at this," was I was in 6th grade, and in America for during the Christmas holiday, a lot of the churches do Christmas pageants where you tell, stories from the Bible, and I decided that I should rewrite the Christmas story, which is insane. Who does that as a,
it's very
10-year-old,
creative. I
11-year-old?
love that idea.
But I look back and I'm so thankful that we were members of a church that was supportive of that and willing to let me, kind of go after it. And at that point, I remember my mother saying, "You're going to write a book someday." And I thought, "Oh, okay, well, sure, I'll write a book someday." But I never really had a topic to do it until a few years ago. But yeah, so I've been just writing for as long as I can remember.
That's really great. Yeah. I think most of us writers like try to start like usually tend to start out early because like we just I don't know, there's just something inside of you that's like you should write. Um
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So you mentioned, your kids and you're married and all that. So I was just wondering like how do you find the time to blog? How did you used to find the time to blog when your kids were home? Um yeah, basically that's yeah.
And first of all, I'm sorry I'm getting the dings. I'm not very technology oriented. So I'm afraid if I mute that, I'm going to mute this. But um, I think like, I kind of equate it to working out, and it's, the writing muscle is one that you have to use regularly to keep, being good at writing. So I prefer to write in the morning. There have been times where I've had to set the alarm for 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. just to get in the time I needed if I was working on a project, just to get in the time to write. We talk a lot in our house about the 0 hours, when my kids say, "Oh, I've got no time to do anything." We always say, "Well, what are you doing from 1 AM, to 6 AM?"
Yeah.
You're sleeping. I don't know how to mute that. You're sleeping. Those are hours that you could use to write or to do whatever you can't do. So for me, it was a lot of the 0 hours. Another thing that I did when life was super chaotic was I got one of the voice recorders because I found when I was driving carpools or waiting to pick up kids from school, I would have these great ideas, and just to be able to pick something up real quick and, record those thoughts to access later helped a lot.
Yeah, I think some of those thoughts, like you have to note them down instantly, otherwise they're gone. Like you're not in that
Yeah.
headspace anymore. So yeah, that's a really good idea. It's great you did that. Yeah.
It is frustrating, and I'm sure you've experienced this when you're, like, in the shower and you come up with a great
Yes.
idea and you're
That
kinda
happens
going through the whole
so much.
thing, and then by the time you get out of the shower and dried off, you it's all gone.
Yeah, exactly. That happens to me so much. It's very annoying.
I
But
so
yeah,
annoying.
some of those thoughts I think you just have to let go of, even though they feel in that moment like this is the smartest thing I'll ever
Yeah,
see.
I know. I know. Dang it.
So, you mentioned that you are part of a blended family, and I read about that in your blog. So I was just wondering, like, I'm sure a lot of my listeners and readers are also part of blended families, or yeah, basically, do you have any advice for them on how to make that work? Um, any advice on how to get closer to your kids, to your partner? Any advice at
I
all?
have I have a whole book's worth of see how I brought a prop? This was the book that finally got written. I it's funny, I just wrote an article to pitch to Huffington Post about the lack of support for blended families, and that is why they're actually more likely to fail than a traditional marriage quickly. I mean, within the first years, they're the failure rate is so high. So for us, I mean, I'm in year 12 now. We're fine. We're going to make it, but it took so much perseverance and patience and just remembering, like, in the end our goal is to have a family that thrives. It I had to learn a lot about putting my own stubbornness aside, kind of for the good of the family, I guess. I am one who, we always say, like, "What, you're gonna die on that hill?" I would die on every hill, and I had to learn not to do that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's slowing down, taking a minute when you feel like things are falling apart, waiting 24 hours because it seems like it always is so much better looking back. Um, I think if you can find someone in your community who has been through the blended family path before, that might be the most helpful thing at all. And it is difficult because a lot of times in America, we talk about stepmothers in like this quiet voice, because we don't want to admit we're a stepmother because there's so many negative connotations to it. So that's kind of the narrative that I'm trying to change is that, stepmother shouldn't be,
Yeah.
it should be something we whisper. We should, scream it from the rooftops that, we jumped in and willingly to do this with the best of intentions.
Yeah, I think so. I think in most places there's like a very negative stereotype attached to step parents, especially stepmothers, which I've always found so weird because like you said, you chose to be part of this family. You chose to, do your best with the kids, and it's not an easy choice to make. It's not a choice everyone would make either. So I think
Right.
I love that, you're putting that out there and like making people understand that it's not just like being a stepmother is not a bad thing, and do you want to just put up your book once more? So
Oh,
people
sure.
can like, yeah,
Yeah, and I'm so excited to hear that you're also working on a book. I'm more than happy to coach anyone through this.
that I
Mine ended
really
up being a bit longer than I didn't know you shouldn't write a book this long right out of the gate, but
No, I love that. Yeah, glad you shared your experiences, your stories, everything. And if anyone's interested, I'll link your
Oh,
book.
thank you.
Yeah, if anyone's interested in purchasing it, I think it would be very like helpful to a lot of people.
Yeah. And it is not, I mean, it doesn't have to be just a blended family. I mean, so much of it is just about relationships and managing relationships that are difficult
Yeah.
and managing relationships that you don't want to give up on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think relationships are one of the most difficult things. It takes constant work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so my next question was, what is your favorite time to write? I know you mentioned like the hours between 12 and 6, but is there like a specific time you just love writing where the words just flow?
I'm a morning writer, kind of while I'm having my coffee. I know a lot of people read the news while they're having their coffee. I like to write when I'm having my coffee in the morning. It also depends what kind of writing I'm doing. I do a lot of freelance work, which is not. I wouldn't say it's not that it's not challenging, but it's kind of it's kind of bland. So that stuff I could do whenever. But if I'm really writing for me, it's typically in the morning.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I'm the opposite. I like writing at night. In the morning, I'm still like asleep. So I
Mm, yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, that's interesting. That's great. Yeah, I think morning is a good time for a lot of people to write. Um,
yeah.
so what are some of your goals as a writer? Like you already mentioned the book. What are your future goals now?
Yeah, so I'm kind of funny because I'll set these goals each year and then I try to knock them out by like March. I'm like, oh no, I can take the rest of the year off. So this year's goal was to record or to publish the audio companion, the audio book that goes with my book, What to Expect When You Weren't Expecting.
Yeah.
And my husband and I recorded it together. It was published in March. It's funny, I've never bought an audiobook, so I didn't even know it was a big deal. So beyond that for this year, I want to try to get, I've got some like places I want to be published. I want to get something in the Huffington Post. I'd like to get something in the New Yorker. So that's kind of how I make my goals for writing. I
Mhm.
also, and you'll find this when you publish, there's so many different contests you can enter as an author.
Was just talking to my publishing manager about that. That's really cool. I didn't even know about that before.
Yeah. Well, it's tough because writing a book is there's a lot of people writing books, especially after the pandemic,
Yeah.
and it's a very saturated market. I think last heard it was like eight books are published every minute.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
you really do have to find these ways to honor yourself and not feel like you're just getting lost in this deep sea of books. So for me, I was an athlete, so I always say trophies matter to me, so I'll just enter these contests and I'm fortunate that I can afford to do so because a lot of them do cost money.
Yeah, the
But
trophies, yeah.
I just find that kind of a motivation. My family's laughing at me because today the Pulitzer Prize nominees open. I'm like, why not? Why shouldn't I apply for that? So we'll see.
Honestly, like just go for it, right? Like
Why
what's
not?
the worst
Yeah,
that's gonna happen? The worst is they'll
right.
reject you, but at least you went for it, right?
I
Like
know.
you never
I
know
like
what's
to
gonna
go big.
happen. That's really great. And what about your blogging goals? Since, this is primarily for bloggers, I have to ask. Where
Right.
do you see
Yes.
your blog maybe 10 years from now?
I imagine I'll switch further into travel blogging.
Mm-hmm.
I love traveling. I have not been able to travel as much as I'd like in the last decade because I've been raising kids. So it was a little nerve-wracking for me because my identity is kind of wrapped up in blogging about family life and what's happening in our home. And as I'm realizing the kids are becoming adults, I have to find something new. And I think travel is probably where I'm aiming for next. Um, Again, the humorous side of it, I'm not one to write about the color of the sheets at a hotel, but I'll write about the best dang bagel in the world.
Yeah, I look forward to the travel books. I love reading. I think travel blogs are like one of my favorite ones to read. So
Hmm.
I think I'm gonna enjoy it. But I think it's definitely quite a switch from what you're blogging about right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yes, for sure.
yeah, I can definitely understand that, but I think it's gonna be really fun. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, okay, so as a writer and reader, I have to ask, what's your favorite book?
That is such a hard question. My canned answer is, oh, it's always the one I'm reading now. I My husband will read the same books multiple times.
Oh wow.
I'm not one of those people. I will read a book and then immediately forget about it. But I was trying to think of a book that really impacted me,
Mhm.
and I would say there's a children's book called A Taste of Blackberries. I think it's a young adult, maybe not children's. And that book was the first book I read that it made me cry. And
Wow.
it was the first time I realized that how powerful words can be when, put in the right order on a page. So when I think about how, a book might have changed my life, I would say that one.
Okay, wow. I haven't read that book, but that's like very powerful. And yeah, words definitely, you realize words have the power to move you, to make you feel like a million different things. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, that's amazing. So we're gonna move on to the fun questions now. I thought,
Okay.
instead of just talking about writing and blogging, it'd be fun to try like some new, like,
Yes.
fun questions. So the first one is, what is the most embarrassing song you unironically love?
So do you know who Weird Al Yankovic?
Yes, I love him.
Oh my gosh, Amish Paradise.
Yes, I love,
Seriously.
but like I don't even think it's like like it's so easy to unironically love that song, and basically anything he does, like
Anything he does.
I love,
Anything.
yeah, he's so funny.
I'm probably gonna put it on repeat after we're done, just so I can.
Me
I'm home
too. Like
alone.
now
That's
that
the
it's in
weird
my
thing I do.
head.
I know.
I think that's the first thing I ever saw of Weird Al. Like that was the first thing I ever saw. I was
Yeah.
obsessed after that.
What about you? What's yours? I'm turning the tables on you.
That's a good question. Honestly, I think it's Baby Got Back. Like I know all the
Oh,
words to it. I just
also,
unironically love that song.
mhm. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and anything by Weird Al really. Like he's just
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so the next one is, if you could start a rumor about yourself, what would it be?
That's so tricky. The first thing I could think of is that I finally got taller. Because I always tell people, like, I'm gonna have a growth spurt. I just haven't had it yet. But I'm like 50, so is it really coming? But then I think, what about people that don't see me every day? And all of a sudden I'm like, they hear and, oh yeah, she's like 5'9" now.
Yeah, I think you should go for it and just start
We
that.
should start
Like,
that rumor right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, she's suddenly 5'9", and I heard
It
like
happened.
she's like 6 feet tall now.
Right. He was right. She did have a growth spurt.
Yeah, you can like call up everyone from high school and be like, I told you so. I told you I was gonna get taller.
Happened. I can reach the top shelf in the cabinet.
Yes. As a fellow short person, I so get that.
Oh, my house is rough too because my 18-year-old is now 6'1",
Wow.
and my 21-year-old is like 5'7". I mean, I'm just so short in my home. It's terrible.
You're the tiny one reaching for everything.
I know. I know.
Okay, that was a fun one, yeah. What's the weirdest thing you do when you're alone or around other people? Just like a weird thing you do.
Oh, I'm wide open when I'm around other people, so you just never know what's coming out. When I'm home alone, the weirdest thing I probably do, like that's maybe a little bit different, is I sing all the time. I About anything, like to my dogs, I just it's like this narration, but it's out loud and I'm singing it.
So it's not like a particular song, it's like you're just singing whatever comes to your head.
Whatever comes to my head. I also do that like with my family where I'll just break out into song, and for me it seems so normal until I look at their faces and they're like, "What is happening right now?" So I do think I could be best friends with Weird Al, and I think that shows it.
You guys are definitely giving the same energy. You could definitely be best friends.
What annoys my family is when I do one that's a catchy tune and then they find themselves singing it about like the fork later, and then they're like, "Come on."
It's just stuck in their head.
Just stuck in their head and they don't know why.
But that's awesome for you though. Like I enjoy annoying everyone so much with that.
Oh, yeah. I do. Yeah, my family. I know my family a lot in a lot of different ways. I love scaring them. I like doing puns, but the singing probably is what drives them the most bananas.
I love that. Yeah. Okay, the last fun question. What is a movie or a movie theme that always makes you ugly cry?
So, I have you seen the movie My Girl?
No,
It's
I haven't
you
seen
might be a bit young for it, but it's what's ironic about this is I was thinking about this answer and I realized it's the same theme as the book I mentioned, A Taste of Blackberries.
it.
What I just put that together, but that movie, and it's the funeral scene because this little boy gets stung by a bunch of bees, and then his best friend, um, they're like 10, like shows up at the funeral. I mean, it's just heartbreaking, and it always makes me cry. I typically don't cry at movies, but if I watch that movie, I'm always going to cry at that scene.
Oh wow. Yeah, I think some movies they just like break your heart. Even though it's just a movie, like it just completely
Yeah.
breaks your heart.
I'm not really that great of a movie watcher. I like going to the movies. I like the popcorn. I generally fall asleep at least once in the movie. Again, this drives my family crazy too. Like I'll go to the movie. I'll go see anything, but I'm not necessarily gonna watch it.
You're gonna be conscious for all of it.
Right. Yeah, I'm here for the popcorn.
That's fair, honestly.
I should do a t-shirt.
Yes, that's like a great t-shirt idea, yeah. And
Yeah.
then you get famous and get to meet Weird Al and collaborate. That's
Right.
the
We'll be like, we thought of this idea on your first podcast with me.
So I think that's it for my questions. I want to thank you for coming on here and being so nice. And like, you're honestly such a fun guest to have on. Like, this went so well now. I'm like, the others have a level
They
to,
have a high bar.
yeah.
Well,
You
I will come
are
back
way too
anytime
high.
you want. And once I get rid of those kids, I could travel and be there with you and record it.
Absolutely. That's gonna be amazing. We're just gonna have you as the guest of honor here.
Exactly.
Yeah. You'll get a free tour guide too.
Nice. I'll sing the theme song
That's perfect. Yeah. It's gonna be stuck in everyone's head forever.
forever.
So, is there anything else you'd like to mention or talk about or say to my listeners, readers?
Well, I mean, if you're listening and you're not tired of me yet, which would be shocking, for sure look me up on my website. It's jylbarlow.com. I
Link
spelled
everything,
Jill,
I promise. Yeah.
Jyl. It's going to be linked in there. You'll probably know way too much about my life within 5 minutes, but it's fun. You got to laugh at stuff.
Thank you. That was awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely link anything. If anyone's interested, they can check the description on YouTube or on my blog or wherever I post this. It will be linked somewhere. And those of
Thanks so
you that are interested in her book, What to Expect When You Weren't Expecting, that's the title, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
If anyone's interested, that's going to be linked as well. That's a fun title. I love it. Yes. So thank you for being here. This was so much fun and hopefully you can come back.
I will absolutely come back.
That's
Thank you so much. I do enjoy your writing so much.
thank
So
you.
it's so nice to put a voice with your words.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Right.